Imagine powering on a computer that most people would consider obsolete, a machine with a single-core processor, a tiny amount of RAM by modern standards, and a hard drive that spins more slowly than today's flash storage. Instead of groaning, freezing, or taking several minutes just to reach the desktop, this computer boots in seconds, opens applications instantly, and feels responsive and alive. This is not nostalgia or exaggeration. This is the real-world experience many users have when they install Puppy Linux. Puppy Linux is a unique operating system that challenges our assumptions about what modern software needs in order to run well. It is small, fast, flexible, and surprisingly powerful, designed from the ground up to breathe new life into old PCs, while still being useful on newer hardware. To understand Puppy Linux, you need to understand not just its features, but its philosophy, its history, and the clever technical decisions that make it so different from mainstream operating systems. Puppy Linux was originally created by Barry Collar in the early 2000s with a very specific goal in mind: to build a Linux distribution that could run entirely in RAM, be extremely small in size, and remain easy enough for everyday users to pick up quickly. At a time when most Linux distributions were growing larger and more complex, Puppy went in the opposite direction. Early versions of Puppy were under 100 megabytes, small enough to fit on a CD and load completely into memory. This approach had a dramatic impact on performance. When an operating system runs from RAM, instead of constantly reading from a slow hard drive, everything feels faster. Applications open instantly, the desktop responds immediately, and even old hardware feels surprisingly modern. This core idea still defines Puppy Linux today, even as hardware and user expectations have evolved. One of the most remarkable aspects of Puppy Linux is how it boots and runs. When you start a Puppy system, it typically loads its core system files into RAM. Once that process is complete, the system no longer depends on the storage device it booted from. You can remove the USB drive or CD in many setups, and Puppy will continue running without issue. This not only improves speed, but also reduces wear on storage devices and allows Puppy to run on systems with failing or unreliable hard drives. For people trying to recover data, test hardware, or simply keep an old computer useful, this behavior is incredibly valuable. Despite its small size, Puppy Linux is not a toy or a limited environment. It includes a full graphical desktop, a web browser, file managers, text editors, media players, and system tools. The desktop environment is usually based on lightweight window managers like JWM or OpenBox, which are designed to use minimal system resources while remaining functional and customizable. The visual style may be simple compared to flashy modern desktops, but it is clean, efficient, and focused on usability. On a low-resolution screen from an older laptop, Puppy often feels more comfortable and practical than heavier desktops that assume large displays and powerful GPUs. Another key reason Puppy Linux can revive old PCs is its extremely low hardware requirements. Many versions of Puppy can run comfortably on systems with as little as 256 megabytes of RAM, and some even less. Processors that struggle to run modern versions of Windows or mainstream Linux distributions can still handle Puppy with ease. This makes it ideal for old desktops, netbooks, early laptops, and even some legacy industrial or educational machines that are still physically functional, but abandoned due to software bloat. Instead of sending this hardware to a landfill, Puppy Linux gives it a second life. Puppy Linux is also surprisingly flexible in how it can be installed and used. It can be run as a live system from a USB drive or CD, installed to a hard drive like a traditional operating system, or set up in a frugal install where only a few core files are stored on disk, while most of the system runs from RAM. The frugal install approach is one of Puppy's signature features. It allows multiple versions of Puppy to coexist on the same machine, sharing storage space efficiently, and making it easy to test or switch between different setups. This is very different from the traditional Linux or Windows installation model, and gives users a lot of freedom. The way Puppy handles software installation is another area where it stands out. Puppy has its own package management tools, but it can also use packages from larger parent distributions, depending on the specific Puppy variant. Some Puppy versions are built using Ubuntu packages, others use Slackware, and some are built independently. This means you can access a wide range of software while still benefiting from Puppy's lightweight core. Puppy packages are often provided in compressed formats that are easy to load and unload, allowing users to add functionality without permanently bloating the system. Security is an often overlooked benefit of Puppy Linux, especially for old machines that may no longer receive updates on other operating systems. Because Puppy typically runs as a live system and stores changes in a save file, it is naturally resistant to certain types of persistent malware. If something goes wrong, users can simply revert to an earlier save or start fresh. Puppy also encourages running as a non-privileged user in many setups, reducing the risk of accidental system damage or malicious activity. For an old PC that is still connected to the internet, this lightweight and reset-friendly design can actually be safer than running an outdated, unsupported operating system. Another fascinating aspect of Puppy Linux is its community-driven development model. Over the years, many developers and enthusiasts have created their own Puppy variants, often called puplets. These customized versions are tailored for specific purposes, such as ultra-low resource machines, multimedia production, education, or privacy-focused computing. This diversity means that Puppy Linux is not a single rigid product, but a family of related systems that share a common philosophy. Users can choose a version that best fits their hardware and needs, or even create their own customized Puppy if they are technically inclined. Using Puppy Linux also changes how people think about computing resources. On modern systems, it is easy to forget how much overhead mainstream software introduces. Puppy strips away unnecessary background services and visual effects, focusing instead on responsiveness and practicality. This makes it an excellent learning tool for understanding how Linux works at a more fundamental level. Users can see exactly what is running, how much memory is being used, and how system performance changes when applications are launched. For students, hobbyists, and curious users, Puppy Linux offers a transparent and educational computing environment. Puppy Linux is not without its challenges, and it is important to be honest about its limitations. Some modern websites and applications are heavy by nature, and even with an optimized browser. Very old hardware may struggle with complex web apps or high-definition video. Driver support can sometimes be hit or miss, especially for very new hardware, since Puppy prioritizes lightweight kernels and stability over bleeding-edge features. The user interface, while functional, may feel dated to people accustomed to polished commercial operating systems. However, for the audience Puppy targets, these trade-offs are often acceptable and even desirable. What makes Puppy Linux truly special is the sense of control it gives back to the user. Instead of forcing hardware upgrades or pushing constant updates that demand more resources, Puppy adapts to the machine you already have. It respects the idea that a computer does not need to be the fastest or newest to be useful. For tasks like web browsing, document editing, email, programming, file management, and media playback, Puppy Linux can handle everyday needs on hardware that would otherwise be discarded. There is also an environmental angle to Puppy Linux that cannot be ignored. Electronic waste is a growing global problem, and extending the life of existing hardware is one of the simplest ways to reduce it. By making old PCs usable again, Puppy Linux contributes to a more sustainable approach to technology. Schools, community centers, and individuals with limited budgets can repurpose donated or aging computers instead of buying new ones. In many parts of the world, this can make a real difference in access to information and digital tools. From a performance perspective, Puppy Linux often surprises even experienced users. Boot times are incredibly fast, application launch times are minimal, and the overall system feels snappy even under load. This is not achieved through magic, but through careful design choices, small binaries, minimal background services, efficient window managers, and smart use of RAM. When everything is optimized for speed and simplicity, the result feels almost unreal compared to bloated mainstream systems. Puppy Linux also encourages experimentation and learning. Because it is easy to back up, reset, or run from removable media, users are less afraid to try new things. You can modify system files, test different configurations, and explore Linux internals without the constant fear of breaking an irreplaceable setup. This makes Puppy a great stepping stone for people new to Linux, as well as a powerful tool for experienced users who want a portable and flexible environment. In many ways, Puppy Linux represents an alternative vision of computing. It asks a simple but powerful question. What if software were designed to be efficient, respectful of hardware, and focused on the user rather than on constant growth. The answer, as Puppy demonstrates, is a system that feels fast, responsive, and empowering even decades after the hardware was manufactured. It shows that progress in computing does not always mean bigger, heavier, and more complex. Sometimes, progress means smarter, smaller, and more intentional. As you watch an old PC boot into Puppy Linux and come back to life, it is hard not to feel a sense of satisfaction. The machine that once struggled now feels capable again. The fan spins less, the system runs cooler, and tasks that were once frustrating become enjoyable. This experience is at the heart of why Puppy Linux continues to attract users year after year. It is not just an operating system, it is a statement about efficiency, sustainability, and the enduring usefulness of well-designed software. For anyone curious about Linux, interested in reviving old hardware, or simply tired of slow and bloated systems, Puppy Linux offers a compelling alternative. It proves that powerful computing does not require powerful hardware, and that even the most modest machines can still have a place in the modern world. By embracing simplicity and efficiency, Puppy Linux turns forgotten PCs into capable tools, once again, quietly reminding us that sometimes the smallest solutions can make the biggest difference.